Professor, o seu áudio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Fernando Bezerra. I'm professor at State University of Maranhão, and I'm going to speak in Portuguese right now. Ok? Eu queria agradecer o convite do professor Thales por estar conduzindo esta banca de apresentação dos alunos, aí parabenizar os alunos que estão aqui presentes, que vão apresentar, né? Sempre é uma tarefa, não é fácil. E queria agradecer muito também a Alessandra aí pela assessoria que está nos prestando. Tá? Então, essas são as palavras iniciais de boas-vindas e agradeço bastante aí a participação dos nossos alunos da graduação do PIBIC e eu passo a palavra aí para o professor Henrique Mariano. Eu acho que ele está com um probleminha no áudio dele. Enfim, então a gente vai continuar, né? Nós temos aqui uma programação, os horários de apresentação. O primeiro trabalho aqui no horário 9h05, né? Estava um minuto atrasado.
Bom dia.
Do Hilquias.
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Vocês me ouvem bem?
Só um momento.
Sejam todos muito...
Acho que o professor Henrique está com uns problemas de áudio, né? Mas a gente pode dar prosseguimento à sessão. Depois a gente consegue falar com ele.
Perfeito. Então, iniciando nossa sessão, a primeira pessoa a apresentar nosso aluno, Hilquias de Castro Feitosa da Silva, categoria PIBIC. O título do trabalho é 20th Century Modern Architecture em San Luis. Orientador é o Hermes da Fonseca Neto. Tá? Você tem até 20 minutos aí, 15 minutos para apresentar. Fique bem à vontade. Te agradeço a participação. Tá? Obrigado.
Eu que agradeço a oportunidade. Antes de tudo, primeiramente, bom dia, né?
Hilquias, o seu microfone.
Perdão. Perfeito. Eu vou compartilhar aqui com vocês o arquivo. Mas antes de tudo, bom dia. Gostaria de agradecer a toda a organização, primeiramente, do evento, ao EMA pela oportunidade. Só preparando o arquivo aqui para poder transmitir para vocês. Quando vocês estiverem olhando o arquivo, se tiver como dar um feedback, que estão conseguindo enxergar tudo certo. Está em tela cheia também. Vocês já conseguem ver o arquivo?
Ainda não.
Que para mim mostra como se estivesse compartilhando. Só um momento. Nada? Estranho. Um momento. Para mim parece como se estivesse compartilhando. Estranho.
Por enquanto, você pode começar a apresentação. Eu vou tentar compartilhar daqui para você, tá?
Tá, ok. Vou só tentar aqui uma última vez. Vocês conseguem ver agora? Agora foi?
Não, ainda não.
Estranho. Vê se tu consegue então compartilhar aí, porque pra mim tá como se estivesse compartilhando, mas não sei que problema tá tendo.
Tá certo. Mas pode começar a apresentação que eu já compartilho, tá certo?
Tá ok, então. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Hilquias Feitosa da Silva. The name of my research supervisor is Hermes da Fonseca Neto. My research has the title of 20th Century Modern Architecture in San Luis, Identification, Mapping, and Typological Analysis of the Commercial Projects by the architect Carlos Alberto Braga Diniz. Okay, so talking about the abstract, the resume of the research is, of course, beginning with the modern movement. So the advent of the modern movement brought to the world some changes in the ways of making architecture that revolutionized the buildings of the whole world. And born in September 30th, 1932, and deceased and passed away in May the 80th, 2005, Carlos Alberto Braga Diniz graduated in Rio de Janeiro. However, and it was in the city of San Luis where he got his heyday, where he became known as an architect and as a modern architect, and beginning his work in the 60s with some residential, institutional, and commercial projects, being that last one, the commercial projects, the focus of this research. And the research had as a goal, of course, the investigation of the commercial buildings of Braga Diniz in San Luis. Okay, and talking about our background, the main background of the research is, of course, the modern movement. So how it started, when and where it started, and of course, how it came to San Luis, and the city where our research has its focus. So studies show that in San Luis, the modern movement started since the second half of the 19th century. Okay, so right here we can see an image of what is considered the first modernist house in Brazil, in Santa Cruz Street, in 1927. And the origin of this research comes from the desire to comprehend the project's methods and methodologies adopted by Braga Diniz, that was an architect and modernist architect that, of course, concentrated his work here in the capital of the state of Maranhão, in San Luis. Okay? And, of course, the research had a methodology. So we had some methodological procedures. Oi.
Just let you know that your slides are on, okay?
Oh, thank you. Now I am at the methodology. If you could.
Actually, it's on your screen. Now you can share. For us, it's showing the name of your.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So, talking about the methodology and the methodological procedures that we had during the research. Of course, the first one is the bibliographical research, where, as I said, we started to try to understand the modern movement itself, how it started, when and where, and how it came to Brazil, and of course, how it came to San Luis, to understand the influences of the movement and how it influenced and could influence the architect, Carlos Alberto Braga Diniz. And the second step is, of course, the field research step, where we went to the field, and we went outdoor, to, of course, know the buildings, to talk with people, to mapping, to do the part of mapping, to photograph the buildings, and, of course, trying to understand the main characteristics of the buildings and of the work of Braga Diniz. We had this step of the interviews, of course, because since the architect has already passed away, we we tried to understand more about him, talking with person that knew him when he was alive. So doing those interviews. And the last one, of course, the research report development. That is what I'm showing to you, the report of the whole research, showing a resume of what we did during this period of 1 year. So talking about our results, we begin with the modernization of San Luis. So in the city, the modern transformations came first, attached, having a link with some political issues. So especially during the period of Getúlio Vargas' government. In the image, we can see the João Goulart building, that is a building that is still up nowadays. That was built in 1933 and is a great modern building that started with this proposal of political issues in the beginning of the modernization in the city. Okay, and talking about the biography of the architect, we search first for understand, of course, the context. So in the past, the city of San Luis passed through a period of economic scarcity. So it kinds that in some ways it unallowed the development of the city. So Braga Diniz and the architecture he used to defend the modern architecture always consider, of course, those problematics, those periods, and how the context of the city. So searching, he was also trying to search for modern solutions for these problematics. And the architect had, and this is of course an influence of the modern movement, had an opposition to the old architectonical shapes and volumes. So for him, copying old solutions was never an option. So he was always trying to find new solutions to solve those problems. And Braga Diniz, besides a great architect, had also part in some public roles, such as a counselor in the Education and Culture Secretary, as a technical advisor in the Previdence Institute, and etc. Here, as I said before, one of the goals of our work was the field research, and we went to some public agencies to try to one part of the work where we passed through tough times because of the pandemic context. So we were not able to do everything we wanted, but we were able to visit the CREA, that is the Engineering Council of the state, to find some informations. Unfortunately, we could not find the original plans, but we find some information about the projects and the works of Braga Diniz that helped us a lot. In talking about the commercial projects, that is, of course, the main part of this work. Right here, we start with the La Ravagée Hotel, that nowadays is known as the Green Hotel. At the image at your left, with the colors gray, purple, and is black, is how the building is nowadays. And the image at your right is how it used to be. So it is a building planted in the area of San Francisco neighborhood in San Luis. And we can see how big this building. We can see the use of the concrete. We can see how this building is impounded. We can see some of those characteristics that are really known by the modern movement, and we can see how Braga Diniz used them to create his own method, his own way of doing architecture. And we can see right here, by the use of the concrete itself, not just as a constructive way, but also as a way of creating shapes and volumes in the construction. Right now, we have the Lusitano supermarket, and that nowadays is known as the Bom Preço supermarket, where we can see, again, the concrete projecting itself away from the building, and how it creates an image of something bigger in the building. And these ways that Bragaginese had to create architecture. Okay, right now we have also the Rheumatology Institute, where we can see again those shapes, those volumes, really characteristics from the movement, from the modern movement, all of those used by Bragaginese in his architecture. So going to the conclusion, as I said, the origin of the research comes from this desire to discover in the city of San Luis the modern movement influence, and of course, and specifically by the work of the architect Carlos Alberto Bragaginese. And I have to say that the current social situation, and because of the pandemic context, complicated the realization of some parts of the research. Some goals we had, such as the search of the original plans in public agencies, some interviews, and etc. But it's just undeniable the importance of the work of Bragaginese, once his work represents a remarkable era in world and architecture history, the era of the modern movement that started some years before, but is still alive nowadays. These are my references. I would like to thank every one of you for the opportunity. That's it. Thank you. Good morning.
Obrigado, Hilquias, pela sua apresentação. Eu acredito que o procedimento será a apresentação de sua, seguida das apresentações das outras pessoas, né? Então, para isso, eu agradeço a tua apresentação e nós vamos convidar a Ingrid, né, Rodrigues, para a apresentação do trabalho dela.
Na verdade, a banca
pois não,
agora,
Alessandra?
A apresentação, o feedback e aí a próxima apresentação, tudo bem? O feedback sendo logo para o aluno, tá certo?
Não entendi. Saiu cortando o teu áudio.
A gente vai fazer agora o feedback com os alunos. Depois, eles vão apresentar e depois a gente já vai dar o feedback, entendeu? Tá ouvindo, professor? Tá me ouvindo?
Estou ouvindo, mas a ideia seria a apresentação de todos e, posteriormente, o feedback, não é isso? Ou o feedback será após a cada apresentação?
O feedback vai ser após cada apresentação. Não é isso, Alessandra?
Isso mesmo.
Então, a cada apresentação vem o feedback.
Isso.
Então,
Hilquias, nice job, congratulations on it. I think you have a nice English. I could understand every single word you have said. Congratulations on it. Can I have, please, can I ask you 2 questions, please? About
of course.
Research. And
please.
First of all, I'd like to ask you, how long have you been developing this research, the second one? Have you got any difficulty to do this research?
Thank you. The research actually started the last year, and in about August in 2020, the research usually has a period of 1 year. So it started the year before and ended in 2021. So we had this period of 1 year to develop the whole research, to go outside, to go to the field, to make photographs, to mapping everything, and to do the research itself. And talking about difficulties, yeah, we had a lot, and specifically I'd like to highlight the pandemic context. That was something that really made something complicated, some parts, and because this research is more about the field, is more about going outside and interview people and taking pictures, and of course for this we have to expose ourselves to everything, to the world. So in some period that we were advised to stay at home, doing research where we had to go outside was kind of difficult. So as I said during the job, we were not able to do some parts of the job, of the work, like the interviews. As I said, the architect is already dead, so we would like to have interviewed his widow, but it was not possible, of course, because of the pandemic context. So it was one of our biggest difficulties we had during the job, during the work.
Oh, thank you very much. You
Thank
are
you.
so confident. Your English is very good. Congratulations. I'm okay. Professor Mariano, você gostaria de fazer alguma pergunta?
Não, acho que você foi bem específico, a explicação dele também foi bastante convincente, né? Eu queria só observar o seguinte, o Thales ontem me recomendou que fizesse as perguntas em português, mas a gente pode falar só em inglês, não tem problema também nenhum, né? Só para a gente saber se realmente qual é o contexto que a gente vai fazer as apresentações, né? Para que a gente possa... mas eu achei a explicação do Hilquias muito boa, a apresentação dele foi sucinta, mas objetiva, né? E as dificuldades e facilidades que ele elencou aí no decorrer da resposta ao teu questionamento, demonstrou o nível do trabalho que ele executou. Então, eu quero agradecer a ele, né, e também ao professor Fernando Bezerra, pela intervenção, tá?
Eu só queria colocar mais... Perfeito. Queria só mais colocar em relação à avaliação dos slides, né? Parabenizar, você colocou em tópicos, colocou as referências, né? A partir dos tópicos você fez a explanação, e aí parabenizar, né? O tipo de apresentação mesmo, quem está na iniciação científica. E assim, espero que você aí alcance voos mais, que você está super preparado aí, fala inglês super bem, né? Fazer um mestrado fora, Estados Unidos, Europa. Estou na torcida, viu? Parabéns aí pela apresentação, parabéns ao professor Hermes da Fonseca, viu? Eu ficaria, fosse meu aluno, obviamente você dá muito também, eu ficaria muito orgulhoso aí pela qualidade do seu inglês, qualidade do seu trabalho. Parabéns, viu? Parabéns mesmo.
Mais uma vez, gostaria de agradecer ao professor Fernando, professor Henrique, pela oportunidade. Realmente tem esse objetivo, né, de futuramente poder estudar fora, e esse evento já é um primeiro passo. Então, mais uma vez, muito obrigado por todas as considerações, foi um prazer enorme.
Obrigado.
Tenha um bom dia. Obrigado.
Bom dia para todos.
A próxima apresentação seria da Ingrid, que tem um trabalho orientado pela Andrea Lobato, professora Andrea Lobato. Eu chamo a Ingrid para a apresentação. Ingrid, a palavra está contigo.
Hello, good morning. How are you? I'm going to share my screen. Just 1 second. Just 1 minute. Alessandra, can you see my screen? Yes? Can you listen to me? Okay, thank you. So, my research is called Theoretical Perspectives of Literary Journalism. I am Ingrid Piauilino, and my research supervisor is Andrea Lobato. As a background, we are going to talk mainly about literary journalism. So, when you talk about it, we can think, oh, that's hard because we're going to mix reality and fiction. We always see journalism as an area that talks about reality, the things that happen, the facts on life. And we think about literature as an area that talks about fiction. So literary journalism, when you first see, is different because it's going to mix the reality and fiction. And we can think about it if it is possible. A first book that we consider as a main literary journalist in the area is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Truman Capote was a journalist and a writer, And he saw a crime on the news, and he went to the city, he went to the area in which the crime happened, and he started to search, to interview the people, and he wrote in cold blood. In this book, as he itself calls, it's also a fiction and also reality, because he catches a fact from reality, and he transforms this fact into fiction in a way that it's fiction, like a romance. So in Cold Blood, you're going to see the real people as characters. You are going to see a narrative. You're going to see dialogues. In this type of form, it's closer to literature than journalism. And that's a movement that we see in literary journalism, that is new journalism. New journalism was a reaction the journalists had to the American rules of writing, because the American rules were, oh, be clear, be objective, don't use metaphorical language, be really objective. And that was too hard for the journalists, because they wanted to have more space to be creative, to talk about, to mix fiction and reality, to use more a metaphorical language in their writing. So we can see a new journalism as a first movement that were against these American rules. Also, we have the methodology as a bibliographical research. So we can see in our research a base on theoretical foundation. That's the main objective also of our research. We are searching for the authors that talk about literary journalism, the concept of literary journalism. And I put it here, Lima 2010, sorry. And he is the main Brazilian author that talks about literary journalism. And also, as we're talking about literature and journalism, we are talking about an interdisciplinary work, because we're talking about different areas and we're mixing them to make this work. Also, reading fishes were made, and to analyze the theoretical foundation, we used analytical categories. Okay, so we can see some results. We have the narrative, the knowledge in Realidade magazine. Lima says that narration is used by literary journalists because it corresponds to a natural demand from people to the old tradition of telling stories. What we can catch from here, both journalism and literature, they are talking about stories about the people, about the facts, about things that happens in life. Fiction occupies itself more about the imagination, and the journalism talks more about the facts that happens on reality. But both of them are talking about telling stories, so they're both going to use the narration so they can do it. And literary journalism is going to use this narrative type to make it the journalist better. The literary journalism is like the journalism, but using resources from literature. How can I say that? We are going to read a book that is based on facts from reality, but the way that this story is told, it's different, because we're going to see characters, we are going to see a plot, we are going to see a dialogue, a narrator in first perspective. So that is different from journalism. So literary journalism expands our view about reality, about the facts. Also, because journalism is really fast, the news come all the time and you forget about them really fast, really easily. So the literature, it's a way that the facts from reality can be more eternal in life. So if you read a book that talks about some crime, some facts from reality, and it's a way that use resource from literature, you can be more profound about the theme. You can understand more what happened, and as you understand more, that it stays more in your mind. So it's going to be more eternal, not only you, but in us as society. Also, as I'm talking, transition of knowledge. So both of them, journalism and literature, want to pass some knowledge to the public. And as I said, when you mix literature and journalism, you're going to have this knowledge in a way that's more profound and deeply on society. We also have the Realidade magazine. It's a magazine, it's a Brazilian magazine in 1966 that refused to follow the North American model. Explaining better, all of us know that the North America, it's always a point for us Brazilians to model, to follow. In the magazine Realidade, they refused to follow this American model that I talked about before. The being clear, being objective, not using metaphorical language. So they wanted to be against that, and they constructed a magazine in text that used this metaphorical language. They were between reality and fiction. They had a compromise with reality, but they could use the resources from literature that allowed the journalism to be more profound to the people that read. Because when I read a biography, it's different than when I read a news from blogs on the internet. So that's a way that these news, these crimes, these facts from reality can be more profound in us. In conclusion, we have this concept, reality against fiction and eternity. So literary journalism is a danger, not only a miracle historical moment. We could think that literary journalism, it's only the new journalism that we talked about. But no, literary journalism is a danger with many concepts about it, with many books that we can consider them literary journalism, and it's a danger in construction. So this work here helps this danger in the scientific research to be constructed. It's possible to mix reality and fiction, as we saw in Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And literary journalism makes a fact more eternal, so we can read a fact, a thing that happened on reality, and we can deeply understand it and deeply care with us for life. And here are my references, and I say thank you for all of you. I'm going to stop my sharing. Thank you very much.
Hello, Ingrid. Congratulations, Nate. That's a great presentation. You look so confident. You are very fluent in English. That's very nice. I have got one question, and please, why did you choose this subject?
Oh, okay. My researcher supervisor was Andrea Lobato, and she called me to be her student. I accepted the challenge, and also because of my curiosity, because one, as I started my presentation, it's really different. We don't listen about it, we don't know about it, we don't read about it. So it's, for me, it's really different to search, and I learned it a lot. When I first saw, I was a little bit, that's not going to work. Reality and fiction, we cannot see that. But as I started reading, studying, I saw that was possible, and that was amazing for me because it expanded my view on life and literature.
Very good. Thank you very much for your answer. And Professor Henrique?
Ingrid, bom dia. Gostei muito da tua apresentação. Tá? Você já é, como afirmou o professor Fernando, você já é bastante literada no inglês, né? Você tem um inglês bastante fluente.
Eu acho que...
Eu vou insistir aqui nas perguntas em português. Então, a tua apresentação, ela foi uma apresentação sucinta, né? Porém, foi bastante elucidadora com relação à questão do jornalismo e da literatura, a questão da ficção e da realidade, e eu gostei bastante, eu acho que aprendi um pouco de uma área que eu não domino, né? Eu não tenho conhecimentos adequados, nós somos consumidores de literatura, nós somos consumidores.
O seu microfone está desligado, professor Fernando.
Me perdoa. Professor Henrique, eu acho que ele caiu. Mas, Ingrid, parabéns aí pela ótima apresentação. Seu inglês é muito claro, sua pronúncia é muito boa. Você parece estar falando com uma nativa. Parabéns. Eu gostei muito do seu trabalho, muito inteligente. Você fez um resgate histórico fantástico, né? Você colocou várias revistas aí. Gostei das slides, como você organizou também, você é sua orientadora, né? A professora Andréa Lobato. Muito bem organizada em tópicos, com figuras, as referências. Muito profissional. E similar que eu falei para o Hilquias, eu desejo para você aí um futuro brilhante, que você, dominando o inglês, assim, você consegue abrir portas aí para o mundo todo, tá? Então, obrigado aí, parabéns pela excelente apresentação e ótimo inglês mesmo. Estou assim, rapaz, cada um dos alunos estão bem preparados. Que bom, viu? Parabéns.
Eu agradeço ao evento, aos professores, a Alessandra também, muito obrigada. É o segundo ano já que eu participo, então é um prazer poder colaborar com a UEMA também. Obrigada.
Obrigado.
Professor, seu microfone.
Não, aqui é porque está automático. Então, eu acredito que Ana Valéria está presente. Alessandra, vai me ajudando.
Vou sim, colocar lá na apresentação.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Ana Valéria. Então, o próximo trabalho é a Ana Valéria Soares Nunes, também do PIBIC. O título é Urban Health Resilience on a Community Scale Post-Pandemic Approach. E a orientadora é a professora Ingrid Gomes Braga. Ana Valéria, fique bastante à vontade, tá? Boa apresentação.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Can you listen to me?
Yes, and we can see your picture.
Okay, thank you. Well, my name is Ana Valéria. My research supervisor is Ingrid Gomes Braga. And today I'm going to show it to you my research project, which is called Urban Health and Resilience in a Community Scale, Post-Pandemic Approach. To give you some background in the subject, I have to start talking about the evolution throughout the history of the concept of health. Through the past centuries, health was always associated exclusively with the absence of diseases. But for the past decades, this concept was kind of amplified, especially after the 70s, into a more wider view that ranges all the aspects of life, our environment, our jobs, lifestyle, and everything. Basically, everything that surrounds us are going to impact in our health. So, bringing it to architecture and urbanism, we can see the impact of the urban environment on the population health, and that is the main purpose of this research, to investigate this and to investigate how we can make it better. Our methodology was the analysis of actions, public policies, and planning projects that promote health around the world. And we did it by an exploratory research where we analyzed articles and mainly reports from organizations like the United Nations and the World Health Organizations, and also the reports from municipalities' managements. We did it by weekly meetings between our research group and discussions. To start presenting to you my results, I show you this chart, which shows the social determinants of health. And here we can see there are many scales into what determines our health, beginning with us as people, the age, sex, hereditary facts, and going into our community, which can include our local economy, lifestyle, the social capital, the relations we have between our neighborhood and networks. And more amplified, we have our environment, both the nature environment, like the habitats, the quality of air, water, land, and the built environment, which includes the buildings, places, streets, and public places. And also the activities that we develop on them, working, shopping, moving, and everything. By that, we can infer that the health should be in our minds, we should be considered in every policy that is planned to the city, not only the urban planning itself, but also in the housing, sanitation, education, all the sectorial plans. To better investigate that, we adopted the movement of health cities and the Resilient Cities Network as a main reference. They unite many cities in a network that they use to exchange information, knowledge, and experiences. On this chart, we have the main principles that they take into account when planning and development of public policies. And by investigating this kind of movements and networks, we were able to track some successful experiences that we're going to analyze as case studies. I'm going to briefly present to you guys some examples. The first one is Bologna, Italy. Two that stand out there, it's the Urban Innovation Plan, which they have as a plan of many interventions in the neighborhoods that are made by the participation of the population. And also the Blue App Initiative, which is an action to decrease the carbon emissions into a more friendly environment behavior. Also, Copenhagen in Norway, they also have a resilient neighborhood initiative that is similar to Urban Innovation Plan, and they made the plan of the Capital of Sustainable Development, where they want to achieve all the sustainable development goals set by the United Nations until 2025. New York, United States, they have a big problem of social inequality, but they also stand out in the resilience, urban resilience matter, because they are very deeply affected from hurricanes, especially Hurricane Sandy, that made this shift on their behavior, and also because they are surrounded by rivers, and the increase of sea level can deeply affect them. Also, Victoria on Canada, they have the official community plan, which is very important to our research because it talks about the approach that is aligned very closely with the population and is very important on a local context. They have the open spaces master plan, but they also have policies in pretty much every sector of the planning of the city. Here in South America, we brought up the city of Medellin in Colombia. That is a very good example of shifting the policies and making a difference. They have the Integral Urban Project, and more recently made the Medellin Future Development Plan. That is a plan for the whole city and engages a lot of matters and different solutions to the city problems. And something that we can really highlight on this plan is the public participation, which is a main principle of the healthy cities movement, and it is very important in our research specifically because, as I said before, we are talking about the approaches that are really on community scale, a local context, and we can really engage the citizen movements into the decision-making process. Here in South America, we also study Santiago on Chile, and we can highlight there mainly the strategy for urban resilience. They have many interventions in the city that are towards to decrease the impact of the climate change, and especially also the increase of sea level. And they also have in this strategy a lot of public participation process, where the people not only became aware of the situation of the city, but also can engage and contribute. By analyzing all these case studies, we kind of found common points in between them. The first one is that all the actions are integrated and all the sectors are integrated, and there's a very powerful intersectoral action between in the management of the cities, and the thematic fields appears repeatedly in all the plans. For instance, the urban green areas, aging, urban mobility, children and youth, and actions towards minorities such as LGBTQ community, women, and equality for people of color. Also, the use of open data and geoprocessing technologies into the planning and management, which is our very important tool. And here in our city, for example, we don't have much data, open data, to help us in this kind of research. And of course, the COVID-19 impacts. All the cities, including ours, was hit very hard by the COVID-19, and the ones that we researched always has some kind of responses for that in facing the impact of COVID in health and also economy. That, as I said, and it's possible to infer, it kind of is a part of health in some way. We can conclude that these actions represent a big advance around the world on bringing health as a major guideline for our plans, and it has a very big influence from the World Health Organization and the United Nations. We also conclude that there are many challenges that our cities are facing in our contemporary times, which is from COVID-19 and the pandemic, but also from the rise of climate change, and is what makes this research so meaningful and so significant, because it is important that we rethink the way we plan our cities. And finally, the case studies can really contribute to us as architects and urbanists, because it can bring a new repertoire of solutions that even we don't put in practice as it is everything, but we can adapt into our local context and make a difference in our own environment. These were my references throughout the research. I thank you all for your attention, and I open to any questions that you want to make.
Ana Valéria, great job. You have a nice English as well. And I would like to ask you two questions. First of all, have you got any difficulties to getting the data around the world? The second one, and in your vision, your opinion, what's the best country with the public development plan for urban health against pandemic? Have you got?
In the related to the data, we didn't have much trouble, because around the world, especially on our cities that we studied, they have, as I said, a policy of open data. So when you go into their websites and the platforms of the municipality management, we can access pretty much everything they have on research and also geoprocessing, which is very important to me as an urbanist, data. And even though it's not the same, like to talk to the people managing, but it's a good start to have the information on what they're planning. And this is very important because I am from here, San Luis, and I can access things that are around the world, but also because the people from the city has access to this data too. And I think that's most important because here I cannot find things from my own city, but I can find information about cities that are in another continent. So that's important to engage citizens in knowing about their environments and what is going planned for them. And the second is my opinion, right? I am really passionate about Medellin because I think it's a city that is very close to our context. It's a context of South America and very much challenged on social inequality. And even though like Canada has had a big actions to fight the pandemic. Also, Copenhagen, I think they were very assertive. But I see Medellin a great reference because they were able to, they were already making a plan into 2020, but they had to shift all the process because of the beginning of the pandemic, and they did it very well. And I believe it's a good place to see as an example for us.
Nice job. Congratulations. You have a great English, very good pronunciation, and I loved it a lot. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. I'm going to speak em português. E gostaria de falar os slides também, assim como os outros, muito bem trabalhados em tópicos. Você explanou os tópicos de forma brilhante, né? Comparando os países, comparando aí a questão do impacto, né, dos programas de saúde, desenvolvimento. Foi muito legal, muito gratificante aí ver a qualidade do seu trabalho. Parabéns, parabéns.
Obrigada.
Né, para a Ingrid, Gomes, a professora, a orientadora também. E é isso, o futuro também brilhante aí aguardando, né? Aplica aí nas universidades aí, se quiser, Canadá, Estados Unidos, na Europa.
Plano.
Parabéns, parabéns mesmo. E assim, a ideia é falar em português e falar em inglês, mas como eu vejo quando a pessoa pode dar o feedback também em inglês, eu acho que a gente faz essa provocação e até agora se saindo super bem. Parabéns mesmo pelo inglês, parabéns pela qualidade. E aí espero aí te encontrar mais tarde brilhando por aí nas pesquisas. Tá bom?
Obrigada.
Parabéns. De nada. Ana Valéria, obrigado. O próximo, obrigado, viu, Ana Valéria mesmo. Às 10 horas está marcada a Natália da Conceição Lima.
Isso, professor, mas a Natália ela está enfrentando alguns problemas de conexão, então nós vamos seguir com o Lucas.
Perfeito. Então, próximo, Lucas Gabriel Póvoas Silva, também do PIBIC, do orientador professor Langi Clan, e o título do trabalho é Sustainability Study in the Production of Biodiesel from the Used Cooking Oils. I think it's the correct pronunciation, I'm not sure. E Lucas, bem-vindo, fique bastante à vontade, tá bem? Sim. Pode iniciar, por favor.
Obrigado. Listen to me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, everything's okay with your screen, okay?
And good morning. My name is Lucas Gabriel Póvoas Silva, and I'm present to the work in sustainability study in the production of biodiesel from the usual cooking oils, and the Griffo Department of Chemistry, Central Education, Exacting, and Natural Science, the UMAI. And in the world today, solutions are sought to reduce various problems. There is the attempt to reduce it of the greenhouse effects, and we are preservation and economy linked to industry, while seeking sustainability and development and new emergence new energy sources. um, will seek renewable energy and new energy sources. One of energies of biodiesel, for example, comes with two proposals. The first is production of energies, and second, environment problems. As biodiesel is in production, it presents benefits of petroleum diesel, is no toxic from renewable sources, lower pollutant emissions content. And main goal evaluation the potential of results from frying results based on analysis of their environmental and operation and production of biodiesel, and specific carrying of transferation and on laboratory scale to obtain biodiesel, and to study transformation potential of percentual yields for the transesterification reaction. Physicochemical characterization of biodiesel is through the specific mass, moisture, ash, and viscosity. Its methodology is divided in three steps. First, separation and filtration. Second stage, transesterification of the production of biodiesel. And third, physical chemical analysis, the density, moisture, ashes, and viscosity. And figure 2, the sample separation of the sample, sample 1, 2, 3, and filtration. Figure 4, and production, the biodiesel, and weighing, herd, transesterification with the presence of the condense, separation, and storage, all done in about 1 hour. And results percentage yields transesterification. And our results, we have the biodiesel in graph 1 and table 1. And graph 1 show the yields in color, and red from OS yields, and green high gas yields. The sample 1 through 3 is biodiesel is and percentage. And table 2, results of physical chemical analysis. The number 1 analysis 9, density, moisture, acid, viscosity, and I was following standards of the National Petroleum ANP in Brazil, and frying oils are viable of the production of biodiesel. Transesterification proved to be effective in production of biodiesel, and therefore there may be a reduction in release of oils in aquatic environments. It was be observed the transesterification in a factor alternative. there are not many devices and values of some physical-chemical properties, such as specific mass and H values. However, monster and viscosity have values that are far from recommended in literature. And conclusion, give to the potential of working capacity to impact in society in the economic and environment areas. It's achieved in which they spend. It's are the improvement in the methodology, the expand the horizon future research and top or university, and special women. In my opinion, these researches certainly demonstrate the need for new environment and routine assessment that should be adopted in my homes, in your homes. And they are reference acknowledgement Dr. Alan Scan, University UEMA, FAPEMA, Laboration Physical Chemical. Thank you.
Lucas, great job. And your English is very clear. You can speak properly. I'm so proud that you have such students like you. And I have got two questions for you, please. And the first one, I would like to ask you.
Professor, can you speak in Portuguese, please?
Of course. Quanto tempo você vem desenvolvendo a pesquisa?
Na verdade, já tem um ano já, desde agosto de 2020.
Excelente. A minha segunda pergunta, qual é o impacto da pesquisa em relação ao ambiente, ao meio não existe, né, mas o ambiente local? O que ele está ajudando, assim, a redução, né, a questão...
Entendi. A questão da diminuição da quantidade de óleo, né? Principalmente na questão de unidade de tratamento de água, que na presença desses óleos a presença desses óleos em estação de tratamento de água, por exemplo, de esgoto, é um problema sério, ainda mais na questão do saneamento básico. Uma proposta que seria interessante seria o recolhimento dessa questão do óleo dentro da própria universidade, porque a própria universidade já produz uma certa quantidade, e aí tem os alunos. Então, propagar isso na quantidade de campos que tem no Maranhão, por exemplo, só no Maranhão, por exemplo, já seria de grandes valores, né? De grandes valores e melhorias na questão ambiental.
Lucas, Alandi, parabéns aí pela pesquisa. Essa discussão aí dentro da Agenda 2030, dentro dos 17 Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável, é bastante atual, e a gente necessita dessas ideias aí para a gente reverter esse quadro de degradação das águas, degradação do lençol freático, no nosso ar. Parabéns mesmo. E eu gostei muito dessa apresentação em inglês, você tem uma boa pronúncia, né? Você fala devagar, dá para entender palavra por palavra, isso é muito legal, muito bom mesmo. E em relação à apresentação de slides também, muito bem elaborados, como os outros, né? Em tópicos, né? Algum textinho a mais, mas você sempre está explicando. E aí eu queria aqui encorajar, todo ano, quando tiver essa oportunidade, sempre apresenta. Em inglês é muito bom, porque aí isso aí vai ser um hábito que você vai criando, vai gerando mais confiança e você vai estar preparado aí para fazer o estágio, né? O estágio, fazer o mestrado, fazer um doutorado aí fora do país. E é isso, infelizmente, você fala infelizmente, mas o inglês é a língua da academia, né? Mundialmente. Então, a gente realmente tem que aprender e falar, e dessa forma. Vai ter sempre dificuldade, não é fácil, mas você conseguiu aí, de forma que eu achei bastante confiante, apresentar, e eu entendi perfeitamente tudo. Parabéns. Tudo bem?
Obrigado. Foi um... Você pode continuar.
Pode falar.
Não, é porque eu queria agradecer ao professor Alangi, né, que me encorajou bastante. Ele já apresentou com as outras alunas no ano passado. Essa é a minha primeira vez. E aí ele vinha falando e já vem encorajando a gente. Não é só eu, como outras pessoas que estão na outra sala também. Foi um grande impulso dele com os nós que somos bolsistas.
Ótima iniciativa. Professor Mariano, não estou lhe ouvindo. Será que é o seu áudio? O microfone está desligado? Faz parte, professor. A internet, a tecnologia deixa a gente na mão, às vezes. Tá tudo bem. Então, Lucas, muito obrigado, parabéns, continue aí apresentando inglês, desenvolvendo suas pesquisas aí, que o ambiente agradece. Parabéns a você e ao professor Lange. Tá bom?
Obrigado.
Próximo, por favor. A Natália já está pronta para apresentar, Alessandra?
Não, a Natália
Então, a gente continua.
ainda não está presente, e aí nós vamos seguir a apresentação com o Chrysthyan.
Perfeito. Está aparecendo aqui o Lucas ainda para mim. Então, o próximo trabalho a ser apresentado é do Chrysthyan, Rhayhan, Souza de Oliveira, também uma pesquisa do PIBIC, orientador ao Clodoaldo César Malheiros Ferreira. I'm trying to say this title because it's very difficult for me, but I'm trying. Intumescent coating versus project mortar, performance and feasibility analysis in steel structures. E o Chrysthyan vai apresentar. Chrysthyan, fique bastante à vontade, tá bom?
Good morning for everyone. Are you listening me well?
Yes.
Okay. Vocês estão vendo o slide?
Sim, tudo certinho.
Beleza, obrigado. Certo. So, again, good morning. My name is Chrysthyan Rhayhan Souza de Oliveira, and today I will present the results of my research, which is titled Intumescent Coating versus Projector Motor, Performance and Feasibility Analysis in Steel Structures. The research supervisor is the Professor Clodoaldo César Malheiros Ferreira. Passive fire protections were created to help steel structures protecting themselves in a fire situation. And the two main examples are intumescent coating and projected mortar. The research comes with the objective to verify the performance of the thermal coatings on steel profiles under compression and fire reaction, in addition to analyzing the economic feasibility of application of applying them based on the current market. Talking about background, when steel is in contact with fire, its physical and chemical properties deteriorate, which cause reduction in its stiffness and resistance. As a result, there is a decrease in the yield strength and modulus of elasticity, in addition to the appearance of additional deformations due to the expansion of the material. So we have, as I said before, passive fire protection, which has thermal protection materials as one of its products that are used when the request on a structure that is in a fire situation is bigger than the resistance, based on a required time of fire resistance, TRRF, which are regulated by standards. In the methodology of the experiment, I used 18 steel specimens divided into 3 groups: angles, joists, and channels with 25 centimeters long. The first steps in the methodology were purchase, preparation, cleaning, treatment, and measurement of the profiles. Here, as I already mentioned, a figure that represents the first steps in the methodology. For the application of passive fire protection, 12 of 18 steel specimens were sent to 2 companies in the state of São Paulo: CKZ do Brasil for intumescent coating and PCF Soluções Engenharia for the projector motor. The application thickness had as a parameter the TRRF, which are 30 and 60 minutes for the intumescent coating and 240 minutes for the projector motor. Here, the figure that represents the application of intumescent coating and the projector motor. I divided the experiments into 3 days. 1 day to uncoated profiles, 1 day to painted profiles, 1 day to motor profiles. The experiments were carried out at the Concrete and Construction Materials Laboratory, UEMA. For the uncoated profiles, first they were preheated for 30 seconds, and then the laboratory press applied a compression until the specimens ruptured. For the coated profiles, the preheating change being 10 and 15 minutes, and after that, the laboratory press applied the compression again. The instruments that measured the temperature were industrial thermometer and type K thermocouple. And the figure that represents the experiments with passive fire protection and the profiles after entire process. Now talking about the results, the uncoated profiles were experimented as a comparison parameter for the test of the specimens with the coatings. And here in the table 1, we can see the test results for the uncoated profiles. And the most important parameter is the load average between angles, between joists, and between channels. For the profiles with the intumescent coating, even if about 20 times longer preheating, when comparing the resulting load with the average load of uncoated profiles, it is observed that the most critical case occurs when angle 2, 155.70 kilonewtons, equals 81.90% of the average load of uncoated angles, 190.1 kilonewtons, which is an acceptable value for the high temperatures reached. For the profiles with the projected motor, considering the same information about preheating that were mentioned in the intumescent coating, the most critical case occurs when joist 1, 413.60 kilonewtons, equals 85.9% of the average load of uncoated joints, 486.10 kilonewtons, which again is an acceptable value for the high temperatures reached. In the financial feasibility analysis, 2 budgets were made for equipments, basic equipments, and materials needed to apply each passive protection. For the intumescent coating, paint, 25 kilograms can, anti-corrosive hemorrhage primer, 2.4 liter can, and brush costs 1,745 reais and 33 cents. For the projector motor and the projector,
that is the equipment, costs R$536 and 33 cents. However, this analysis must be done with care, as several factors can change this price, like compression rental, applied thickness, and others. Finally, about the conclusion, it is noticed that the experiments have the existence of some variables, like heat source, temperature matters, cure time. But even with this, the final comparison was successfully verified, since the major reductions are acceptable. In the financial feasibility analysis, the price of the motor is actually lower compared to the paint, but this is expected due to the base market in this area. Finally, I can say that the correct technological control guarantees the required security on steel structures against fire. Here are some references that I used, and thanks for listening to my presentation.
Chrysthyan, you had an excellent presentation. Congratulations on it. I love a lot. I'm so proud of you as well. And I have two questions I'm going to ask you in Portuguese. First of all, qual foi a motivação da escolha da pesquisa? Essa é a minha pergunta. A segunda, falar um pouquinho sobre o projeto Motor, o que ele é, como eu estudo a geografia, de outra área, da área ambiental, você falar um pouquinho, achei muito interessante sua pesquisa, parabenizar o professor Clodoaldo, parabenizar você, um trabalho bem com base científica, bastante consolidada, muito interessante, parabéns mesmo, e seu inglês também muito bom, parabéns, viu? E aí eu queria que você me respondesse aí essas duas perguntas, por favor.
Primeiramente, muito obrigado. Aqui foi um desafio para mim. Fazia bastante tempo que eu não voltava a praticar meu inglês, desde 2014 praticamente, então foi bom relembrar bastante, até pelas minhas metas do futuro, né? Eu quero fazer um mestrado, talvez um doutorado fora do Brasil, é a minha meta, então é muito importante essa primeira desenvoltura, né? E respondendo a sua primeira pergunta, professor, a minha motivação foi a seguinte, as estruturas metálicas aqui no Brasil, elas não são tão comumente utilizadas quanto em outros países, por exemplo, nos Estados Unidos, na Europa, a gente vê muitas construções, mesmo de casa, até casas simples, são utilizadas as técnicas do steel frame, que é uma técnica de construção muito rápida, utilizando estruturas metálicas. E muito disso do Brasil não ter... tem vários fatores, na realidade, para o Brasil não ter utilizado as estruturas metálicas, por exemplo, como o concreto, né? Fatores históricos, porque antigamente o concreto era mais barato que o aço, mas um dos principais fatores foi um medo que a maioria dos construtores tem de utilizar estruturas metálicas e quando o aço entra em contato com o fogo, né? Porque tem aquela teórica fragilidade do aço em cima do fogo, e aí o pessoal fica com medo, então... Mas existem tecnologias no mercado que proporcionam uma resistência maior às estruturas metálicas enquanto estão em contato com o fogo. E foi justamente essa a ideia da minha pesquisa, trazer e mostrar aos construtores, principalmente aqui do Nordeste, que existem sim tecnologias que podem ser aplicadas, então as estruturas metálicas podem ser sim utilizadas com segurança. E respondendo à segunda pergunta do senhor sobre a Projector Motor, no caso, é a argamassa projetada. Intumescent Coating é a tinta intumescente. Então, são duas técnicas de proteção passiva, que a gente chama essas técnicas de proteção contra o incêndio de proteção passiva. A intumescent coating é tintura intumescente, que é uma tinta mesmo que se pinta, lá tem todo um tratamento especial nela. A gente pinta ela e ela garante até 120 minutos de proteção contra um incêndio, que dá tempo do pessoal evacuar, a edificação, tudo certinho. E a Projector Motor, que é a argamassa projetada, ela garante até 240 minutos de proteção. Garante muito mais tempo e ela é mais barata. Contudo, a problemática dela em cima da tinta intumescente é porque ela tem um aspecto de chapisco, não é um aspecto muito agradável, assim, visualmente. Além disso, ela tem um peso maior na estrutura. Às vezes você tem que dimensionar um pouquinho a mais a estrutura em função do peso dela maior. Então, basicamente, é isso.
Ô, Chrysthyan, muito obrigado. Uma outra pergunta. Você está em qual período?
Eu acabei de me formar. Me formei agora em setembro.
Ah, caramba, cara. Ah, bacana. Caramba, você é muito bem preparado, assim, domina aí toda a técnica aí do seu estudo que
Foi
você
o tema da
está.
minha pesquisa, do meu TCC, foi o tema de tudo.
E é um assunto muito importante, né? A gente vê aí essa questão dos incêndios, essa preocupação aí por parte aí da construção civil. E aí você vem aí com uma tese, com uma ideia muito bacana mesmo, a questão e possibilidades aí de proteção aí a essa estrutura de ferro, de aço, né?
Isso.
Parabéns pela pesquisa. Os slides também muito bom, bem escritos. O inglês eu gostei bastante, em tópicos, as figuras, muito bem explicado em inglês. Parabéns, Cristian, parabéns ao professor Clodoaldo aí. Excelente, excelente pesquisa, excelente mesmo, e ótima apresentação. E você vai conseguir, tenho certeza, fazer seu mestrado, fazer seu doutorado fora. E aí acho que você está preparado já, viu? Parabéns.
Obrigado. Se Deus quiser,
Parabéns.
tudo vai dar certo. Muito obrigado.
De nada. Então, gente, só. Alessandra, então a Natália ainda está com um problema técnico, não é isso?
Isso, ela não conseguiu conectar, problemas de conexão, e todos os alunos já apresentaram, exceto ela.
Certo. Então, mais uma vez eu queria agradecer ao convite do professor Tales, parabenizar pelo Café Internacional, fazendo história aqui na universidade, parabenizar os nossos alunos pela coragem, né, pela excelência aí no inglês, todos muito bem preparados, confiantes, e eu vejo assim futuramente serão profissionais brilhantes aí com enormes possibilidades aí para eles. Agradecer também ao professor Henrique Mariano pela presença, agradecer muito a Alessandra pelo todo o suporte oferecido, e a Ari, né, tá de parabéns, assessoria internacional da universidade, pela qualidade, por esse evento que já faz parte do calendário acadêmico. Agradecer muito mesmo pelo convite, muito feliz de ver que nossos alunos estão muito bem preparados, tanto no inglês quanto a sua pesquisa, né? Pesquisas muito bem elaboradas, escritas. E é isso, agradecer muito, e é uma honra aí estar participando aí e estar ajudando aí a universidade. Obrigado mesmo.
Eu também quero agradecer, não sei se estão me ouvindo. Estão me ouvindo?
Estou te ouvindo.
Agora, rapaz, que coisa, parece que eu já estava até sem graça, tá? Fui lá, desliguei o modem, botei de novo, liguei novamente, porque... Então, me perdoem por essas falhas técnicas, né? E eu quero deixar os meus agradecimentos aqui à Superintendência de Relações Internacionais, em particular ao professor Tales, pelo convite, pela participação. Fiquei muito feliz de ver o nível dos nossos alunos, não só no inglês, como também no nível das pesquisas. Então, eu acho que a gente está num caminho bom, tá? É um bom caminho. São coisas que a gente vem tentando já há algum tempo fazer. Eu tento fazer isso já lá no mestrado de computação, faço isso também com meus orientandos de iniciação científica, mas pela primeira vez estou participando aí desse evento, né? Onde os alunos apresentam isso aí. Acho que isso deveria ser estendido para mais áreas, né? Acho que também o período foi muito curto para inscrição, né? Mas eu acho que é um caminho sem volta, é um caminho que a gente tem que trilhar, né? E tenho certeza que a universidade vai ser muito bem sucedida nisso aí. E nós, professores, só temos a ganhar com isso, e os nossos alunos, evidentemente. Então, um bom dia. Obrigado, Alessandra, aí, pelo apoio. E quero agradecer também aos alunos, todos eles, ao Hilquias, a Silva, a Ingrid, a Ana Valéria, a Natália, ao Lucas Gabriel, e ao Chrysthyan, né? Então, foram pessoas... Teve uma que não apresentou, foi a Natália, né?
Isso, a Natália.
Mas também fica de parabéns porque tentou.
Em nome da
isso.
Superintendência.
Então, muito bem, obrigado. Agradeço aí a convite. Diga,
nome da
pode falar.
Superintendência, né, de Relações Internacionais, em nome do professor Thales, eu agradeço muito a participação do professor Fernando e do professor Henrique por se juntarem a nós na banca. Agradeço também a participação dos alunos que tiveram essa coragem de submeter, e alguns estavam nervosos, mandando mensagem para a gente, tentando contornar um pouco a apresentação, mas a gente, não, vocês vão apresentar, vamos lá, colocar a cara a tapa mesmo. E é isso, é um caminho sem volta. A gente espera contar com o apoio dos professores para a próxima sessão internacional também e contar com a participação dos alunos.
Falando inglês o tempo todo para que a gente possa... Né? Mas eu acho que a gente tem que ir devagarzinho, né? Você vê que ainda tem pessoas que falam um pouco, mas o entendimento ainda não é... a compreensão, né, da conversação não é ainda adequada, mas a gente vai chegar lá.
Com certeza.
Professor Fernando, muito obrigado pela sua companhia, fico grato em revê-lo, tá? E um grande abraço e ficamos à sua disposição. A Alessandra fica à sua disposição também, à disposição da Superintendência de Relações Internacionais, e amanhã nós temos um outro evento, né,
Isso,
Alessandra?
a programação do Café Internacional ela segue com os workshops temáticos que nós vamos realizar com a Universidade de São Tomás, no Chile. Tanto workshops temáticos que o professor está participando, com certeza, e também temos pela tarde com os alunos que estão fazendo o curso de português e o curso de espanhol para estrangeiros.
Muito bem, estarei lá presente, acho que vai ser eu e um professor lá
da São Tomás.
Universidade do Chile. Então, até amanhã.
Até amanhã.
Até mais, gente. Obrigado. Tchau.
Fernando, um grande abraço, amigo.
Abraço, Mariano. Abraço, Alessandra. Obrigado.